Dzień dobry Państwu, jesteśmy dzisiaj na Superbet Rapid Blitz Polska w Warszawie. Moim gościem jest Garri Kasparow, jeden z najwybitniejszych szachistów wszech czasów, wieloletni mistrz szachowy oraz głośny opozycjonista i przeciwnik Władimira Putina.
Dzień dobry, to duża przyjemność gościć Pana w Warszawie. Jak się Panu podoba w Polsce?
No, these days there are very few countries I feel safe to visit, and Poland is one of them. And it's a very good combination here in Warsaw of being a guest of a major chess event, the Superbet Rapid Blitz, but also to meet my friends, political friends who are helping us to fight Putin regime. So Poland is one of the biggest contributors to support Ukraine, and while I understand that the country is deeply divided domestically, politically, but there's a obvious unity.
W tym temacie,
yes,
tak.
in the matter of opposing Russian aggression.
Yes. And we are,
Jesteśmy w wyjątkowym miejscu, w Muzeum Historii Żydów Polskich. Czy wie Pan, co się wydarzyło w tym miejscu przed laty?
Tell me, please, do you know what happened
Of course. I'm a very good scholar of history, so I know about the uprising of Warsaw Ghetto. I know about the Great Polish Uprising in July 1944. So let's say that this country, this city, had very, very rich history and genetic memory of what could be done by totalitarian regimes, whether they come from West, Germany, or from east of Russia.
Yeah. And nowadays,
Aktualnie, 80 lat po tych tragicznych wydarzeniach II wojny światowej, w Europie doszło do podobnych. Masakry w Buczy, Irpieniu, Hostomelu.
Yes.
Czy kilka lat temu przypuszczałby Pan, że takie zdarzenia mogą się powtórzyć?
did you think that it is possible to some like these tragical events can even happen once again?
It's not that I thought about it. I have been predicting it for many years for a simple reason. It did happen already in other places. If you look at the pictures of Mariupol bombed by Russians, or Aleppo 6 years earlier, or Grozny, I'm not sure you can identify which one. So Putin regime from the very beginning was built on blood, on war. So for me, it was very obvious that he would follow up. And it's not just it was my fantasy. He has been making no secret of his plans of not simply destroying Ukrainian statehood and eliminating Ukraine as a nation, but also to challenge the existing world order, the liberal world order that is based on compromises, treaties, consensus, negotiations. Putin's dream, is bringing us back to the 19th century or even earlier, the time where the might was right and the big countries, big empires dictated their will to the small countries.
Yes. So
Jeśli doszłoby do tego, że Ukraina przegra wojnę, co się stanie w Europie? Jaki będzie następny cel Putina?
What will be his next target?
Look, I feel pain even to discuss what comes next if Putin succeeds in Ukraine, because his plans are quite obvious. He will continue challenging NATO, European Union, by prolonging his aggression. Putin is war for a very simple reason. He has no other reason to stay in power. Every dictatorship needs symbolism, needs justification, needs a foundation. For Putin, both ideologically and economically, war is like an engine that keeps him on top of Russian power. So he will definitely look at Moldova, but I have no doubt that he'll start chasing NATO countries, maybe not directly crossing the border, because I think Putin recognizes that direct military confrontation with NATO will be disaster. But if, again, God forbid, he wins in Ukraine, he could start mobilizing Ukrainian men into his army. So his army will be stronger. Ukrainian economy will work for Putin's war, and maybe the balance will change. So let's remember that half of the German tanks that crossed the border of Poland on this day, September 1st, 1939, were made in Czechoslovakia. So every successful aggression adds power to a dictator. So judging from Putin's behavior, from his statements, and from dynamics, he will continue his aggression.
But do you think that
Myśli Pan, że jeśli Ukraina przegra wojnę, to może dojść do kolejnej zimnej wojny? Scenariusz optymistyczny czy realistyczny?
is it realistic or optimistic? What do you think?
I don't understand what kind of war.
War.
There's a real war happening now. What I mean, Cold War is the war where you have opposing system recognizing that this is the crossing the lines. It's might be devastating. We are already in the middle of the war. And this is not a Cold War. This is a hot war, and it's not just a war in Europe. It's a war in Gaza. It's a war in Africa. It's a war that may erupt anytime in Latin America, Venezuela. Putin's another client of Putin. The dictator Maduro is trying to annex the territory of a neighboring country. You have China looking with one eye on Taiwan. So the war is there, and it's again not me saying. Vladimir Putin believes, and he made it very clear that this is a World War IV already. While the West is afraid of World War III, he believed that the World War III was a Cold War, which Soviet Union lost, Russian Empire lost. And he now wants to take revenge in the World War IV. So we're there, like it or not. It's a war against us, and we have no choice but to fight back.
Czyli to czwarta wojna światowa.
It's again, you have to accept the arithmetics of your enemy. Since Vladimir Putin is fighting this World War IV, and he made no secrets of his plans of changing the world order, we have to defend what is important for us. We have to defend our values. We have to defend our borders. But we have to recognize the war will not end until regime change in Moscow.
Mm-hmm. So
co możemy zrobić tu w Polsce, by czuć się bezpieczniej?
Feel safer?
I don't think I can offer extra advice for Poles or for Lithuanians or for Latvians or for Estonians. Whatever can be done is being done. So the problem is that it's the west of Poland. We still have politicians that are trying to find a way to compromise. So those who don't want to recognize a simple truth, that's these you don't compromise, you don't negotiate with cancer. You cut it out. And I just I wish that everything that is being understood here in Poland, in Baltic nations, in Finland, in Romania, in Czech Republic, this knowledge will eventually, help to change the balance of the minds of the Western politicians. Ironically, the public opinion in these countries, whether it's America or Germany, is very much in favor of helping Ukraine. But you have politicians that are not willing to take historic responsibility for helping Ukraine winning the war.
Dlaczego tak jest?
Because that's a small caliber. You look at Joe Biden and think about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and you understand the difference. So because winning the war, just creating new geopolitical reality requires statesmanship. It's a different kind of politicians. So today we have people that try to manage it. They don't want to break the status quo. And that's why they say we stand with Ukraine as long as it takes, which is ambiguous and means nothing. Ukraine receives weapons enough to survive, but not to win the war. Mm-hmm. So I want to hear 3 words, magic words. Ukraine must win. And before we hear it from Washington, Berlin, or Brussels, with all due respect, Poland and Baltic nations cannot change it on their own. You should keep doing what I've been doing. And by the way, preparing for the worst, because I don't want to think about it. I think it will be one of the most tragic days in modern European history. But if Putin succeeds in Ukraine, look at your border.
Yes. So what we should...
Czyli teraz powinniśmy kupować więcej broni, umacniać naszą armię?
I think it's not that it's not an option now. It's mandatory. So you just have to prepare for the worst. You have to also, I think, you have to start cooperating with your neighbors. Basically, you should make sure that if again worst comes to the worst, the eastern or northeastern flank of NATO, from Finland, Sweden, Baltic nations, Poland, will be ready to meet the threat. It's probably now creating, some sort of form of cooperation, because we don't know what will happen in America. But I think we reached a point where European nations, especially Eastern European nations, should think about their own security, not expecting America to always back them up. You may demand America to provide nuclear umbrella, but as for conventional forces, it seems that Americans have very little appetite now to fight war. So there's no other choice but to prepare for war. I don't think we will reach this point, but it better be prepared than to meet the new Russian onslaught unprepared.
Przeczytałem pański artykuł, w którym przedstawia pan koncepcję utworzenia tak zwanego rosyjskiego Tajwanu w Europie. W skrócie chodzi o danie pewnych praw Rosjanom żyjącym w Europie. Czy jest to sposób na osłabienie reżimu Putina?
And tell me please, is this the way to make Putin's regime a little bit weaker?
Yes, but it's not just, giving rights for Russians living here or those who want to live. This is not, like a tourist visa.
Yeah,
the idea is based on a very simple concept. That is, at war, you should have a choice to stay on one side or another side. The problem is today, millions of Russians that I'm sure would like to join Ukraine, join Europe, they cannot do it. So if you're Russian, you're basically cursed. So you just, you pushed to stay on the Putin side. So our suggestion is that you have a declaration that states 3 key things. That's the war is criminal, regime illegitimate, and Crimea is Ukraine. You recognize Ukrainian sovereignty, and you cut ties with Putin regime. And then you become part of this quasi-digital state. So why it might be a big blow to Putin regime? Because while Putin has manpower, just 140 million people, but when you look at the very thin layer of Russian experts, computer experts, engineers, financial experts, he can't afford losing even a few 100,000. And that's exactly the target audience. If we can start attracting these people, and if they see this alternative, it might be a big blow to Putin's war machine. One engineer leaves Russia, maybe it's minus 10 missiles that he had. So that's how you fight the war. So it's a unique opportunity that was not available in World War II. Americans couldn't offer German scientists visas in 1942. You can do it now. And make sure that these people will be fully empowered. Just, they need kind of a document. So that's why I said Russian Taiwan. It's also to avoid idea of government and exile. This is not an attempt to make a representation of 140 million people. We don't talk about 140 million. But what about these 2, 3, 4, 5 million? Still a big number. Of those who don't want to be responsible for Putin's crimes, but have nowhere to go now, and I think it could be analog of Free France of de Gaulle. So it's the moment we turn the war from Russia against the West, which Putin successfully convinced Russians, into the war between the free world and Putin's Russia. We need strong Russian component of the coalition fighting Putin. We need few millions Russians like myself officially joining this war and helping the free world to win.
Jak pan myśli, ile procent Rosjan żyjących w Rosji jest przeciwko wojnie?
In Russia nowadays.
We don't know. I mean, it's everything I say will be it's not speculation, but it could be based on some side information, because polling in fascist dictatorship doesn't offer you even remotely correct results. I don't think that the percentage of Russians who opposed aggression from the beginning was more than 15%. That's the people who objected on moral ground.
Czy ten odsetek rośnie, czy spada? Chyba rośnie, prawda?
I don't know, because again, it's based on other polls that were done 10 years ago about Crimea annexation. Let's say 15%. I think the number of Russians who supported the war and aggression never exceeded probably 1/3, which means the rest didn't care. So I think we have big number, and I think this number is growing. The number of Russians that say, okay, war is a war, so what can we do about it? And we have no choice. So in order to understand what is the real mood, you have to offer them a choice. If they know that they can leave Russia and join free Russia elsewhere, we'll see that's the real numbers. As of today, they're stuck. So that's why I think majority is just, it's probably cursing the war at night in their kitchens. So but you can't see anything on public.
Czy Rosja jest dziś słabsza niż przed 24 lutego 2022?
It's definitely weaker because people believe it's not as strong as it used to be. I think one of the problems before a full-scale invasion was a fear of Russian army, second strongest army in the world. Now we understand it's not even close. But militarily, it's probably more effective. It's weaker militarily because many of the professional troops have been lost in the first offensive. In the first 6 months of war, Russia had huge losses of professional forces. But it's being, just retraining people and bringing new people. And technologically, Russia is conducting the way I'm not pretending to be a professional, but what I can read from military reports, from telegrams, so there's channels, even Russian telegram channels, the war is being conducted more professionally now, with more drones, very sophisticated drones, they improved missiles. I don't think it will last because the war economy doesn't function effectively for a long time. But as of today, I think Russia reached the peak of its production, and also quality-wise, we should give credit. Russia has enough engineers and computer experts. So we could see that the way that Russia has been destroying Ukraine, it's getting more and more effective.
Let's talk few words.
Porozmawiajmy chwilę o zbliżających się Igrzyskach Olimpijskich w Paryżu. Gdyby to od pana zależało, jaką decyzję by pan podjął wobec sportowców z Rosji i Białorusi?
Athletes from Russia and Belarus.
Very simple. You have to condemn the aggression. If you don't condemn it, I don't believe you should participate. Very simple. It's at a wartime. You have to make a choice. So you can't be neutral. This is all this nonsense. Oh, let's do a peace as in ancient Greece. Come on. The war had a very different meaning. It was like a noble war. It's a war of destruction. It's a war of extermination. Pretending that we can apply the noble rules of the ancient Greece today, no.
Okay. So tell me, please.
Na koniec pytanie. Jaką wiadomość przekazałby pan Polakom w tej sytuacji? Mamy 12 maja 2024 roku. Co powinniśmy robić? Jak się zachowywać? Czy możemy cokolwiek zrobić, by zatrzymać Putina?
What would you tell to people, to Poland? What should we do? How should we act to stop Putin? Can we do anything?
No, look, stay united. So again, let's argue about your domestic issues, but stay united because winter is here. It's not just coming; it's here, and your unity, your strengths, your determination, resolve. That's the only way to minimize the risk of the war going further west, because Putin, as every dictator, has animal instinct. He goes weak for blood. If nation is divided, he will strike. If the nation is united, again, there's a better chance. Build stronger ties with your neighbors and prepare, because war has its own logic. And when you have on one side, wild animal dictator that has nothing else left but war, you should be ready to meet the danger with open eyes and with your clenched fist.
Zatem polską racją stanu jest zatrzymanie go na Ukrainie.
Now to stop him in Ukraine, right? So
you have to. Look, you'd better stop Putin in Ukraine. Again, I'm not here to argue about Polish troops crossing the border, but maybe you should think that things are looking really grim. Would you like to wait before Putin wins in Ukraine, mobilize Ukrainian men, and will fight you at Warsaw, or you find with Ukrainians at Kyiv? So it's your choice, but it's very clear that until Putin is defeated, you cannot sleep quietly.
Thank you very much. Gościem kanału sportowego na Superbet Rapid Blitz w Warszawie był Garri Kasparow, wielokrotny mistrz świata w szachach, wybitny szachista i przeciwnik Władimira Putina. Thank you very much for your conversation.
Thank you very much for inviting me.